Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Iti piso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho vijja charana sampanno sugato lokavidu anutaro purisa dhamma sarati satta deva manusanang buddho bhagava ti swakato bhagavata dhammo sanditiko akaliko nehipassiko opanayiko pacchatang veditambo vinyuhi ti supatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho ujupatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho nyayapatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho samicipatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho yadidang Chattari purisa yugani atta purisa pugala ese bhagavato savaka sangho ahuneyo pahuneyo dakhineyo anjali karaniyo anuttarang punyakhetang lokasa ti evang buddhang sarantanang dhammang sanghang cha bhikkhavo bhayam va chambitattam va lomahamso Nahesatiti. Now, these few days I have been trying to feed you with all kinds of informations, thinking that it is very important to understand what you are doing. Otherwise, you are just sitting there and being bored. And this is not a good condition. So, before we come back to the nose or to the whole body, I will today, say the last day, we have to make some limit. I will explain at least the theoretical understanding of the process of getting into samadhi. From next week, tomorrow, there will be day for questions and answers so that you can clarify very clearly. And on Sunday, we will again start talking back to the nose and back to the concrete process of attaining the samadhi on the breath and how to go into the first dhyana, second dhyana, third dhyana, fourth dhyana. For those, some of us are already advanced. They are approaching the stage of entering the dhyana. Some of us are complete beginners. So we have to find some middle way to satisfy all. Those who are beginners, they should be paid a special attention so that they see very clearly how advantageous it is to put effort into their meditation. And in order to put effort in meditation, one has to know what one is doing. So, in the enumeration of the wholesome factors of mind, in all Buddhist traditions, the saddha or shraddha or shin, the faith comes first. One has to have faith in what one is doing. Only then one will be doing well. And the faith we have explained, I am never tired of repeating it, especially in Buddhism, cannot be a blind faith. It is called okapanna because one arranges oneself with what one is doing. O means down and kapana means arranging. So you have to know what you're doing. When you know what you're doing, then you can, the second, in the Theravada tradition, the second wholesome factor of mind after faith or conviction is what? You guess. What we have been talking about this morning and explaining, it is sati. One has to have faith, only then one will practice sati. If one has no faith, one will not practice mindfulness, one will not practice memory, recollection. So, there is no question of developing the wholesome. The development of wholesome is dependent on faith and mindfulness. Due to mindfulness, then one starts distinguishing between what is wholesome and unwholesome. And then all the other wholesome factors of mind can grow. Without mindfulness, they cannot grow. So after mindfulness comes hiri, ottappa, comes shame and fear of doing evil, then can come the equanimity and the factors connected with the lightness and clarity of mind. This is to be seen in meditation. So the practice of mindfulness opens one mind to the fact what is, to the deep understanding what is to be done and what is not to be done. What is beneficial and what is not beneficial. And then one starts having shame and fear of doing that what is not beneficial. Then one starts to make effort to do beneficial. And the most beneficial one can do is precisely developing the practice of deep concentration, of meditation and of wisdom. That practice is the, so to say, the summary of all the virtues. All the virtues, other virtues, are the conditions for developing meditation and wisdom. You should understand it very clearly in your practice, otherwise you get bored with what you're doing and you start thinking something else. So, according to Buddhism, we have yesterday started to talk about it. The attention decides what we are experiencing. That's why the attention is compared in the Buddhist tradition to the charioteer of the mind. It gives the mind direction, and without direction the mind simply does not move. there must be this factor of making object in the mind, then the mind will move. So all cognition starts with the act of attention. No attention, no cognition. If there is no charioteer, the chariot cannot be driven. And chariot is our body and the mind. That is why, especially in the Yogacara tradition, which emphasizing that everything we experience is actually just mind, the attention is in the middle of our understanding of the process of meditation. All states of meditation can be explained by different kinds of attention. Now, if you have some understanding of what you have been doing, and if you have been trying at least a little bit to do it with conviction that it is going to help you, so that you have tried to keep your mind inside the body, not let it wander around. So you have already experienced, or must have experienced, that when you pay attention to the breath with concentration, when you pay attention to the breath with mindfulness, with awareness, the experience of the breath will be very different than when you pay attention to it without these qualities. So see the same object, but the whole world of difference in accordance to how you pay attention to it. Actually, according to Buddhism, you should very clearly understand that this is actually our condition. How we experience the world depends on how we pay attention to it. In the 400 verses, the famous work of Aryadeva, the most prominent disciple of Nagarjuna, Aryadeva says in the beginning verses, you fool, we are really fools. The same object which brings you attachment, brings you anger, brings you pride and all kinds of different conditionings, and you full believe that this object is true. The breath, as we have started explaining in the beginning, is the most excellent means of understanding the unreal nature of our body and the mind attached to the body. it is changing in front of your mental eye in accordance with the level of your concentration and understanding of that phenomena. So, we have started explaining yesterday the process of meditation on anything, especially on breath, starts with the understanding of the object, making the object in the mind with understanding. We have explained before the 6 powers which lead to the state of shamatha, to appeasement of mind, start with the power of hearing and the power of contemplation on what we have heard. In terms of attention, it means you have to understand the object you pay attention to. Liao, Xiang, Zuo Yi. Yesterday we have explained. If you don't Liao Jie Xiang, if you don't understand your object, your effort will cannot be successful. So one has to know what one is doing. One has to know very clearly, I am watching the breath in order to get rid of my monkey mind. If I do not pay attention to the breath, the monkey mind will come even with more power, because I have been preventing it. So it is only waiting for the chance. Like if you make a dam of water and then you prevent the water from flowing, when there is a hole in the dam, the whole mass of water will go out. Because you understand it, you start being mindful. The mindfulness is a key, we have already said. Without mindfulness, you do not enter into the process of shamatha and vipassana. You do not enter into the process of conscious sublimation of the object and the mind. The process of shamatha and vipassana is nothing but the process of the sublimation of the mind and its objects. Because we do not understand the subtle object, therefore our mind is gross. When the mind is gross, it will never give you satisfaction. Only a subtle mind can give satisfaction. When one understands it, one will understand that being without mindfulness is just can be compared to a madness. all the unfavorable circumstances of the mind will emerge. We try to suppress them, but they will be very obstinate. Like the monkey that got hold of the banana, it will never leave. So very easy for the hunters to catch the monkey. They put the banana in the cage, he put the hands through the cage and hold the banana till the hunter comes. So this mindfulness is the necessary condition for all wholesome factors of mind. The non-greed and non-hate depends on mindfulness. Without non-greed, without mindfulness, no question of having non-greed and non-hate. And we have yesterday already explained that all the unwholesome factors of the mind depends on this complex of grabbing or pushing away. The excitement and worry, the sloth and torpor, the doubt. Of course, there is a positive doubt, but here we are not concerned with positive doubt. It's doubt about the wholesome activity we are doing. Because we have doubt about the wholesome activity we are doing, then our mind will never settle on it. When the mind does not settle on it, it cannot practice mindfulness and awareness. So we have started explaining yesterday that only when one understands the object, Liao Xiang Zui, there will be Shen Jie Zui, the making the object in mind in the sense of determination. In shamatha, in the practice of learning shamatha, you are making, in a way, the object in the mind in the sense of determination. Among the many distinctions of the attentions that we find in the tradition of yoga, there is a difference between the making in the mind of the object by determination, which is called adimokshiki manasikara, and the making of the mind in accordance with the true nature of the object, called tattva manasikara. Jenshe I Zui, Jen Li Te Jen, She Ching Te She, I Se Te I. making in mind the object in accordance with the real nature of the object is especially we study in the Vipassana, when we determine the own nature and the common nature of the objects. But we still have to make this common own and common nature of the objects in mind with determination. So even in Vipassana, you have to pass through this process of determining. Because you determine, you do not let the mind wander, you let it stay steady on the object. That's the condition for learning shamatha and vipassana. No question of learning shamatha and vipassana without that. So the mindfulness and awareness must be there. Otherwise, the objects we need to study shamatha and vipassana will disappear. When the object we need to study shamatha and vipassana disappears, all kinds of daydreaming may appear, because we have been practicing concentration and we have explained the concentration is a deep mind. Deep mind is always close to the base of the mind. From this base of the mind, any kinds of images can appear. When we do not have the determination to keep the mind to the shamatha or vipassana object. We have already explained that the tradition of Yogacara especially emphasizes that all objects of meditation, no matter whether appeasement meditation, shamatha, or insight meditation, vipassana, are mental objects. Only mental consciousness can develop concentration and wisdom. The nature of the five consciousnesses governed by our senses is by its nature a distracted nature, monkey nature. That which brings stability to our sensual consciousness is that it is grounded in mental consciousness. And the mental consciousness has concentration and wisdom based on mindfulness and awareness. So, the reason for making object in mind with determination is precisely mindfulness. When the mind has mindfulness, it becomes concentrated. When the mind is concentrated, it can understand what is wholesome and unwholesome. It can see defilements clearly and see the way how to remove them. If mind has no mindfulness, we are in the middle of defilements, but we do not see them. In the Theravada tradition, the mindfulness is always wholesome and always in each and every wholesome state of mind. Whenever our mind is wholesome, there must be mindfulness. In the northern tradition, however, the logic of the thing is slightly different, because we can have wrong mindfulness also. Suppose you shoot someone, you have to concentrate, take him clearly. But that is wrong mindfulness, not together with non-greed, non-attachment and non-hate. However, it is without the mindfulness, the mind cannot do clearly, cannot see clearly anything, and whatever it does in the condition of non-clarity, because the next moment it forgets what it has been doing in the previous moment. So, as we have explained, the condition of the monkey, of the mind dominated by the senses without concentration and awareness, whenever color becomes prominent object, it runs after color. If the smell becomes more prominent than color, it runs after smell. If the bodily sensation becomes more prominent, it runs after bodily sensation. If the bodily sensation in the knee is prominent, it stays in the knee. When the shoulder starts to be more prominent, unpleasant sensation, right goes to the shoulder. Then after a while, some sensation in the ear, it starts scratching the ear. So one without mindfulness, without concentration, even sitting in the most comfortable seat, cannot sit even 1 minute quietly, will always follow one sensation after another in the body, and always look for impressions outside at the same time. His movements will be different, his breath will be different. However, if he becomes mindful, his movements will change, his breath will change, his speech will change. And the whole world will appear in a different light. Only when one sees it very clearly, one will learn to pay attention to the meditation object with determination. So only here the wisdom from meditation can develop. In Buddhism, we speak of three kinds of wisdom: the wisdom from hearing, wisdom from contemplation, and wisdom from meditation. The wisdom from meditation can only develop with this kind of putting in mind the objects with determination, with mindfulness, which makes the perception steady so that the mind does not wobble. When the mind's perception, which means holding the image of the object, is not steady, the one sees the object but actually does not see it. One smells the object but actually does not smell it. One indulges in one's own fancies. And these fancies are based precisely on this complex of liking and disliking, connected with the excitement of the mind and dullness of the mind. When one starts to apply one's mind to the object with determination, then one will be able to enter, as we have explained, into the process of purifying the mind. Otherwise, the defilements are there and one will not be aware of them. And one will even feel the defilements are okay, they are fine. One will think it is perfectly okay to be excited, it is perfectly okay to be drowsy and dull. One will not see that being drowsy and dull and being excited is just expression of our ignorance. So, the making in the mind of the object, in sense of isolation of the mind is the condition of purifying the mind. Is the condition for entering the process of purification on the basis of determined attention. So, after Shen Jie Zuo, there is Yuan Li Zuo. You start to separate. Yuan Li means also separate the mind from defilements. You cannot separate the mind from defilements without mindfulness, If you have no mindfulness, you can never do it. Please be attentive to this fact and try to practice mindfulness continually, because without mindfulness you cannot separate defilements from the mind. So the entering into the process of purification of the mind actually starts with mindfulness. Because of mindfulness, one will be able to develop awareness, and on the base of awareness, the defilements can be purified. Awareness will see when the tendency of the mind to sinking appears, when the tendency of the mind to excitement appears. And it will see the, on the base of mindfulness, it will see the appropriate countermeasures. In the tradition of meditation, the countermeasures, all objects of meditations are connected with kind of countermeasures. One practices attention to the non-beautiful objects in order to counter the tendency of the mind to grab to the beautiful, to what it considers to be beautiful. One practices the metta meditation in order to counter the tendency of the mind to anger. One practices the meditation of mindfulness of in-breath and out-breath to counter the involvement of mind with millions of useless thoughts. One practices the meditation of 6 elements, of making the personality to counter the defilement of pride. All that individuality is just earth, water, fire, wind, space, and consciousness. That's all. And one practices the meditation of on the dependent origination in order to counter the dullness of the mind. So, all these different meditations are concerned with purifying one's conduct, and they are complementary. When the conduct is purified, then the mindfulness and awareness will stay. If the conduct is not purified, the mindfulness and awareness will not stay. When the mindfulness and awareness stay, the defilements will be very few. When the mindfulness and awareness goes away, the defilements will be many, many. So we see the same process that we have explained now on the base of attention. Only when the attention on the meditation object is with determination, and the determination can only succeed when the mind is governed by mindfulness. If we bring the mind to the object by force, the mind will we will find it very difficult to stay with the object we need. The mind will resist. If we bring the mind to the object with mindfulness, the mind will not resist, and it will stay with the object, because mindfulness is always connected with concentration, and only concentrated mind can experience pure happiness without attachment and equanimity. Equanimity here means nothing else but the reducing the tendency of the mind to cling to the pleasant and to fight against the unpleasant. So it can be translated as impartiality of the mind. Impartiality of the mind, as we have explained, you cannot practice by force. You can only practice when you have mindfulness and awareness. And only when the mind is impartial, it can practice shamatha and vipassana. If the mind is not impartial, it cannot practice shamatha and vipassana. So when you hold to the good conditioning that you experience in meditation, they will go away, and you will be only frustrated. It is only when you know that you can maintain this bliss and happiness of meditation, when you detach, that you will enter deeply into shamatha and vipassana. So when you enter the process of purifying the mind due to mindfulness and awareness, then you start experiencing joy and happiness. This experiencing of the joy and happiness leads, of pure joy and happiness, leads to the further purification of the mind. When the mind experiences joy and happiness which is pure, it has more clarity and relaxation, and it becomes more subtle, and the object of its observation becomes also more subtle. So, we have already explained the so necessary to be comfortable with a meditation object, to be fulfilled with it. Only then you can enter deeply into the process of purification of the mind. Otherwise you remain on the surface. And you will be able to enter very deeply into this bliss and happiness of meditation only provided you detach. Unless you detach, you will never do it. The happiness and of meditation will just go away. When the happiness and joy has continuity, then naturally the mind becomes more